So thank you, and I really am delighted to be here today. I've been looking forward to this very much. And so I do have a PowerPoint presentation, and just getting right into it, you know, I have, after the Hillsborough defeat over there in 2010, I've gone to the PSTA meetings now for about 3.5 years. So what I'm going to be showing you is a lot of their information. If this works, this is not going to work. So let me go here and do it this way. Okay. All right, first of all, we're going to start with just the basic fact that public transportation at the end of World War II was that 50% of the people that lived in urban settings used public transportation. And then over the years, you can see that it has slid down to 2%. And certainly here in Pinellas County, we have less than 2% that depend on public transportation. And this is our public bus system, PSTA. This is a $650,000 hybrid bus that you see running around. They have about 20% of their fleet of 200 buses that are the hybrid buses. PSTA operations are highly subsidized, which, you know, we would expect to have some subsidization, but the PSTA operations are 75% subsidized by the taxpayer, which is us. Federal and state grants at 22%, passenger fares represent 22%, and advertising 3%. Now what we're talking about today, and I'm going to be talking very quick so I can get through this, is the ad valorem property tax. That is the crux of the matter, is the 1% sales tax is being proposed to replace the ad valorem property tax. This is 100% of their operation budget, and their operations in 2014 is $63 million. Now, if we then add the capital expense, do I need this?
I'll advance.
Okay, thank you. If we add the capital expense of the budget, which is another $23 million, the total budget for PSTA in 2014 is $87 million. If you divide that by the number of rides, not riders, not people, but rides, each ride is $7, and the person riding is paying 91 cents. So it is 87% subsidized. Next. Okay, this slide I simply have to give us an idea of what happened to our property in the last decade. The red bar is really a dramatic depiction of what happened to the value of all of our homes. So here you can see in 2002 to 2007, we hit the high water mark, and I know I thought I was rich. Didn't you think you were rich? In 2007. And then, of course, this also shows what happened to the ad valorem property tax that was going to agencies such as PSTA. So their income, as our properties went up in value, went up, and then as the bottom dropped out of things, and of course the income went down. This black line here in 2011, at the end of 2011, is where PSTA raised our property tax by 30%. Next. So PSTA, during that period of time, in 2005, built a $40 million facility while their income was up, doubling their space and expenses and expanding the bus lines. And if you haven't seen this, you should drive out and see it. It's on 34th Street. It's quite an impressive facility. Next. The ad valorem, this is another slide that starts with the year 2007, and it shows the high water mark of that $38 million. And then as the economy dropped and property values went down and ad valorem went down, PSTA by the year 2011 had dropped down in that portion of their budget to 2011. They passed the tax increase and it went back up. Next. So they raised our taxes by 30%, but still they continue to outspend their income. Next. PSTA, this is a PSTA slide, and it shows you that in 2002, this is the trajectory of the spending that occurred throughout the years. Here's where the bottom dropped out of things, they stalled out. Then here in 2012 is where the property tax, this is an unaltered slide from PSTA. This is where the property tax passed in 2012, and then off the spending goes again. This green line here, I did not put this on. This is where they think that we're going to pass the 1% sales tax and bail out the problem. Next. PSTA salary and fringe benefits are 60% of the revenue. I've been told that the industry standard for a bus system like this is 35 to 40%. Anyone who runs a business that lives in this room knows that you cannot run your business on 60% revenue going to salary and fringe benefits. But during this period of time, at 2007, you see that they had almost 620 employees. The bottom dropped out. They let people go. Here's when the tax increase happened, and then they start hiring people again. Next. CEO Brad Miller warned that if a new sustainable funding source is not found, PSTA will have to cut services again by 30% by 2016. Next. PSTA is a crossroad. They have to transform at great public expense or fix the bus system that we own. Next. That brought about the highly controversial $1 million Greenlight campaign that Commissioner Welch was discussing that's under scrutiny. Next. The idea of Greenlight is increased bus and light rail. Next. But it's 90% rail, 10% bus. This is out of the Ernst & Young report that PSTA hired done. And the darker bars here show you how much of the capital is going to go to light rail. And this here is how much is going to go to the bus expansion. And the numbers shake out. It's $2.5 billion for light rail, $300 million for bus expansion. And the first few years they will use the sales tax to expand the buses. Next. Greenlight Pinellas is in a tax swap. It's a massive 14% increase in the sales tax rate from 78%. And the ad valorem property tax now, $32 million, is going to be replaced by the sales tax, which would generate $148 million a year in the first year, which is 2017, according to Ernst & Young. Next. The increase is enormous. This shows you what the scale of this and the scope of this is. Again, we're just talking about that one part of their budget. Now it's $30 million. The new tax from the sales tax, $130 million in 2016. It is projected to go up by 3% each year without sunset, unlike Penny for Pinellas. It will go on I start to say ad nauseum, and that's probably pretty close. Go ahead. The next one is the Pinellas County highest sales tax in the state. You know, other people might be thinking about whatever. This would be the highest sales tax in the state. Next. And it cannot be good for business. I just want to mention that just can't be good for business. Then, it's very important that we understand PSTA will apply to issue bonds and obtain federal grants by using the income stream from the sales tax. They will obtain loans and grants and bonds that will get us a couple $1 billion in debt in our county, initially $1 billion almost immediately. Next. Doing nothing is not an option, PSTA's Brad Miller said just a few months ago. Next. It's based on many false premises. This is a brochure off of their website, and they say in the brochure that we have to get ready because 200,000 more people are coming to Pinellas County and by the year 2040. Next. But that is not true. We have flat growth projected in Pinellas County. Next. They also say we have record ridership on the buses, 1 million people, 1.2 million a month. But next, how do they count bus riders? And I think that, you know, this is one thing that we have to understand, and that is that one bus rider goes to the mall, they transfer a couple times, they go back home, and it's 6 rides. So when we're talking about 1 million rides a month, that has basically been unchanged since I found back in 2008 they were over 1 million rides a month. It's not riders, it's rides, and it depends on how they count that. Next. Have you noticed empty buses? I certainly see empty buses all over town. Next. And the 700, and last summer they did a Pinellas Community Bus Plan in July of 2013. We paid $700,000 for this plan through PSTA last year. Next. And this tells us why we have empty buses. This is an independent bus study. Again, this is on PSTA paper you can see here. This is a picture of the 40 bus routes that were at that time last summer. These represent buses, these represent trolleys, these two represent the buses that go over to Tampa, 2 lines. This is an unaltered slide, and it tells us that the top 5 local routes account for 46% of the whole system ridership. These 2 account for another 13%. So combined, these routes, these 7 routes out of 40, account for 60% of the system ridership. Next. So we want them to implement the $700,000 bus study called the core strategy in the no new revenue scenario. I don't have time to get into that, but this is what we support, the finding of the $700,000 bus study that you and I paid for. Go back. Next. And a lot of these routes could be served by $144,000 connectors instead of these $650,000 megabuses. Next. Another false premise is a link to Tampa. There is no link by rail to Tampa in this plan. Oh,